Begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph, right at the beginning of the Amud, where it says Leime Ketanoi. The Gemara here is discussing what it brought in the Mishnah, the Tumah of Eretz Ha'amim. This is a Tumah that Chazal will geyser, that if you enter into Chutz La'aretz, you become Tameh. Now, there's a Tumah that comes from the gush, from the ground itself, because of a chash that there's people that are buried there, or Taisvus actually says could be from the time of the Mabel. There are people that are buried there. But then there's also a tumah in the avir. So the Gemara had a shaila, do we say that there's only a tumah on the gush, on the ground itself? And in the ear, you would only become tameh if you form an oil over the gush. Your body is bending over and you create an oil, then you become tameh. But otherwise, in the ear space itself, there's no tumah. Or we say no, that they were geyser on the very ear space itself, that it's tameh, not related to the ground. That was the shaila. So the Gemara now here brings a brayse that similarly this is a clear machlekes Tanaim. Leimike Tanoi, shall we say this is an argument of the Tanaim here. Hanichnas le'eretz ha'amim, a person enters into Eretz ha'amim, b'shida, teva, migdal. So he's inside a box or a trunk or a closet, any of these enclosures. So Rebbe mitame, Rebbe says he'll still be tameh. In other words, even though he's enclosed, and once he's enclosed, so there's a chatzitze. It disconnects him from having any connection to any source of tumah. But Rabbi says he'll still be tameh. But Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, metaher. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda says because he's enclosed, so he'll be tar. Says the Gemara, my love, don't you think that the argument here is Rabbi Sovar Mishum Avira? Rabbi says the tumah in Eretz Amim is from the very fact that you're in the airspace of Eretz Amim. So if you're in the airspace of Eretz Amim, it doesn't matter that you're inside a box. Just because you're in a box, that's not a chatzitza from the avir. You're in the airspace of the Eretz Ha'amim. You'll still be tameh. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda holds mishum gusha. The whole tumah of Eretz Ha'amim is only because of whatever mace might be buried in the ground. So therefore, over here when you're inside a box, you can't become tameh. The only way you would become tameh in the ear is if you form an oil over the ground. But over here, once you're inside this box, that's a chatzitza. It separates between you and any tumah that could be in the ground. That's what Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says, you'd be tar. So we have a clear machlekes here. So the Gemara says, Loi, not necessarily is this the explanation for their argument. The Kul Alm, everybody agrees, Mishum Gusha, that the tumah is only coming from the ground, and the fact that you would create an oil over the ground, not in the airspace itself. So now, what's the argument here, whether you would be tumah or not? Mar Sovar oil zaruk shmei oil. So Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says that when you're inside this box or this trunk, which is in motion, that's what oil zaruk here basically means. I mean, the literal translation of zaruk means that it's being thrown, but it means that you're inside and you're moving, you're in motion. So Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says that it doesn't matter that it's in motion. You're still inside of an oil. You're inside this box which covers you from all sides. So you're protected. You're safe there. It's a chatzitza. So therefore you're tired. But Rabbi says, Lo Shmei oil, that when you're inside this box, because it's in motion, so it's not a proper chatzitza. In order for it to be a proper chatzitza, it has to be a wall or a closure that's in one stationary place. Because it's in motion, it doesn't create a chatzitza. So therefore you'll become tameh, because you're creating an oil over the gush of the ground.
If you put down the
so if you would put it down, then Rabbi would agree that you would be tar. It's in one place. But if you entered into Chutz La'aretz while it was in motion, so right there when you were entering in motion, you become tameh. So the Gemara now says on this v'hatanya, and here there's a machlekes Rishonim how to learn this v'hatanya. Either it's a question or it's a raya. So first let's learn it as a question. Fragt the Gemara, but v'hatanya, we learned in the brayse Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says teva shimeleya kelim. You have a box that's full of dishes, v'zarka pnei ameis, and you threw it. So this box is flying, it's in motion, and you throw it, and it flies over a dead body. The word ba'oil here in the Gemara, the Rishonim say, is extra. So this flying box with dishes inside over a mace, tmeya, it's going to be tameh. Why is it tameh? Because it's a oil which is in motion. True, the kalim are inside a box, but it's not safe there. It's not protected there because it's in motion. So therefore, it's going to be tameh. If these kalim that are inside this box is stationary in one place, then even if it goes over a mace, tahira, it'll be tired. So the question of the Gemara here is, I clearly see that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says that an oil zarok is not an oil. And before we wanted to say that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda was the one that said that the oil zarok is considered to be an oil. So this is a contradiction. That's the first pshat that Tosfos says here in the Gemara. But most Rishonim actually learn that this Vatanya is a raya, not a question. And the reason is because when the Gemara says that there's an oil zarok, there's two types of oil zaroks that are in motion. There's the oil zarok in the example of this braisa, when a person threw a box with dishes inside of it. It's just flying in the air. Then there's another example of oil zarok, and that's what the Gemara was talking about before. An oil zarok which is also in motion, but it's not just flying in the air. An oil zarok which is on top of a donkey, on top of the back of a person. It's moving, but it's sitting on something while it's moving. So according to this pshat, when the Gemara before said that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda holds that an oil zarok is an oil, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda was talking about the oil that's in motion, but it's lying on top of something, on top of an animal or a person. So on that, the Gemara brings a raya. I'm reading this piece again. According to this, that it's a raya that when you have this box full of dishes, which is just flying in the air, it's not lying on anything. So that kind of an oil zarok, because it's just flying in the air, it has no sense of being stationary in any way whatsoever. It's not an oil. Tmeya. But munachas, and according to this understanding, when it says if munachas, it doesn't mean that it's literally in one place without any motion. But munachas means it is in motion, but it's sitting. It's sitting on an animal or on a person's back. So then it will be tar because Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda holds that even though it's in motion, it's still considered to be an oil. So according to this, it's bringing a raya to what we said before, that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda holds that an oil zarok shmei oil. Okay, so now the Gemara continues and brings another two answers here. Ella, according to the first pshat we just said, you go this Ella because it refuted the first answer. Or according to the second pshat, you take out the Ella and instead you put in V'i boyis eime, that the Gemara is now giving a second answer. The kula alme mishum avira. Everybody agrees that there is a tumah in the ear space of Eretz Amim. So what's the argument over here regarding this person that enters inside this box? So now one opinion here is Kivin de Loishchiche. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says that because it's not common for a person to be inside a box, in a trunk, he's entering like in a very unusual way. So in such a case, you enter in such an unusual way, Loi Gozer Be'Rabbanan. Chachamim did not apply their gzeira. We always know the klal, Chachamim make gzeiras, that's only if it's in a normal fashion. But if you enter into the ear space in this unusual way, their gzeira, that the ear space is matamayu, does not apply. Mar Savar, but Rebbe holds, once they made the gzeira that the Avid and Eretz Amim is metamayu, so it's metamayu regardless of how you enter, even if you enter in this unusual manner. That's the basis of their machlokes. The Gemara now brings a raya to this. Tanya, we learned in the Braise, Hanich nes Eretz Amim b'shida tevo migdal. If you enter into Eretz Amim in one of these kinds of box, a trunk or a closet, so then tar, so you'll be tar. And the reason again is because it's unusual. But if you enter into Eretz Amim and you're also not mamish on the ground itself, but you're going in an unusual way. B'karain, you're on a wagon, or b'sfina, on a boat, or b'iskaria, which is also a kind of a larger boat that has a big mass on it. So Tomei, in such a case, even though you're not on the ground of the Eretz Amim itself, you're in the ear space of the Eretz Amim, you'll be Tomei. And the reason is because that's the normal way to enter. So here we see clearly in this Braise that it's making a distinction if you enter in the normal way or in a not normal way. Or a third answer to explain this machlekes of Rebbe and Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Hacha, over here, what the machlekes is as follows. So before I read the words of the Gemara inside, the Gemara now is accepting to say that really the tumah comes only from the gush. The Gemara doesn't spell it out, but this is what it means here. The tumah really only comes from the ground. And this person entered inside a box. And if he's inside a box, he's really protected. Even though it's in motion, it's an oil zarek, it doesn't matter. Oil zarek shmei oil. So really, he should be completely protected from any tumah. So then what's the reason why Rebbe says he's still tamei? Shema yaitzi reishe v'rubei l'sham pligi. There's an argument, do we say that Chachamim were geyser, that he should still be tamei because being inside this box, it's very possible, very easy for him just to stick his head out of this box to get some air, and then he's gonna become tamei. So therefore, are we geyser for this or not? Rebbe says, even if he didn't actually stick out his head, we're geyser, that he might stick out his head. So Chachamim were matamim, that he shouldn't enter this way. And Rabbi Yosef says, no, we're not geyser. So therefore he won't be tamei. So Gemara brings a raya for this. Vatanya, we learned in the Braise, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yudoimer. Hanichnes l'Eretz Amim b'shida tevo migdal tahir. If you enter into Eretz Amim in a box or a trunk, so then you'll be tahir, because when not geyser, he's going to stick out his head. Unless he actually sticks out his head or most of his body, even if not the head, then he'll become toy, because he's in the airspace of, or he's actually going to form an oil over the ground of Eretz Amim. But until then, he's not going to be tomei. So this Braisa clearly says that this is only if he enters in a box. Meaning if he would enter and he would be inside a boat or inside a wagon where he's also completely enclosed. Over there, Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yehuda would agree that Chachamim were geyser that it should be tomei, because over there it is usual for a person to stick his head out of a window of a boat or out of the window of the wagon. So over there, Rabbi Yosef would agree that it's excited. In this case, when you're inside a box, it's a very unusual thing. Over here, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says that while he's inside the box, there's no gzeira. Unless he actually sticks out his head, he's not going to be tomei.
This is a closed box.
Yeah. It's a closed box, but could be has a window in it. I mean, it's some kind of a closed trunk or a closed closet, but it has some kind of opening that he could stick out his head. Okay, going back to the Mishnah, umaschil umayne. So the Gemara here is going to focus on the part of the Mishnah where it speaks about a Nazir that in the middle of his days of Nazirus became a Mitzayda. And the Mishnah spoke about where he became a Mitzayda and he has to keep his days of Tzaras outside of the Machna. That the Mishnah called Mei Gomroi, when he's completely a Mitzayda. And then Mei Sifroi, when he's counting his days to clean himself from being a Mitzayda. And the Mishnah said that what happens is that those days while he's a Mitzayda interrupts his days that he's counting of being a Nazir. But as soon as he's done with his Tzaras, he goes back to where he was holding with his days of Nazirus. It doesn't nullify the previous days. He goes back to where he was holding. So on this Rav Chisda said, this that we said that he goes that it interrupts his days of Nazirus, and now he has to continue counting from where he left off. That's only going to be by a Nazirus Moetes, by the minimum Nazirus of 30 days. So in such a case, the days that he was a Mitzayda during his Nazirus will not be included in the days of his Nazirus. He's going to have to continue counting. Those days of the Tzaras do not count. Aval b'Naziris merubah. But if a person accepted upon himself Nazirus longer than that, let's say 100 days, then mislik nami salkenle. Then he could even actually count the days of him being a Mitzayda to be included in the days of his Nazirus. It doesn't interrupt his count at all. Now, the basis of the difference, what's the reason for the difference over here? The reason is based on something we learned already earlier in the Masechta. When you finish your Nazirus, you have to cut the hair. And the hair that has to be cut then has to have grown at least 30 days. So if he has a minimum Nazirus, so now what happens is when you're done with your Tzaras, you have to cut your hair. So you cut your Tzaras when you're done your hair, and now you want to continue counting your Nazirus. You're not going to have 30 days to count for your Nazirus. So that's why the days of the Tzaras is going to interrupt your Nazirus. You have to get 30 days to now cut your hair for the Nazirus. But when it comes to a person that has a long Nazirus, let's say his Nazirus is 100 days, so then even if he cuts his hair at the conclusion of his Tzaras, but he still has enough days left afterwards, even if he combines it with the days during his Tzaras, he's going to count it all, not interrupting anything, but he's still going to have enough days that he'll have 30 days to grow his hair after his Tzaras, so there's no reason to interrupt his Nazirus.
If it's only 30 days, then he doesn't cut from the Tzaras.
Oh, if it's only 30 days, it's actually a problem. Let's see, the Gemara is going to address that right now. Let's see right here. Most of Rav Shravya asked, and what Rav Chisda said, what did it say in our Mishnah? Maschil umayne miyad, that this person that was a Nazir became a Mitzayda in the middle. So the Mishnah says that as soon as he's done with his Tzaras, he could immediately resume his days of Nazirus. He does not have to nullify the previous days of Nazirus that he kept. He just continues going wherever he was holding in his days of Nazirus. The question now is, B'mai, what are we talking about here? Is our Mishnah speaking about a minimum Nazirus of 30 days? So what is it saying? Let's say he counted 10 days of his Nazirus. Then on the 10th day, he became a Mitzayda. So now we interrupt his Nazirus. What does he have left of his Nazirus? He only has 20 days left. So what are you going to say? our Mishnah is talking about Naziris Mu'etes, that this minimum Naziris, but the 20 days that he has left is not going to be enough, because Kaboi Gidl Seir. He has to have 30 days in order to grow his hair enough properly to be able to conclude his Naziris. So our Mishnah can't be talking about exactly 30 days. He's not going to be able to just resume his Naziris where he is, as the Mishnah says. And lalav, so don't I see from what it says in the Mishnah, b'Naziris merubah, that our Mishnah is actually talking, it is not like Rav Chisda, it is talking about a Naziris that's more than 30 days. And the Katani, what does our Mishnah say? Maschil umayne miyad. That even though it's more than 30 days, nevertheless, the days of Tzaras interrupts his Nazirus, and then he resumes counting it after the Nazirus, wherever he was holding. Rav Chisda said, only if it was the minimum Nazirus of 30 days, then I say that you interrupt your Nazirus. But if it was more than that, you don't interrupt your Nazirus. So the Gemara says, Hu ma'isiv la v'hu mefarek la. Rav Shravya asked this question, but he also gave the answer. And basically the point that the Gemara is going to explain over here is that when our Mishnah over here, what it's saying is that he could immediately resume counting where he was holding, that's as long as he still has 30 days left afterwards. Okay? As Gemara will explain it, an example for this. So, B'Naziros pas chamishim yom. Let's say, for example, there was a Naziris of 50 days. Now, the Yosef Esrin. So he already kept his Naziris for 20 days. And then what happened is, if he only kept his Naziris 20 days, so he still has 30 days left over. And then V'Yisyalida Beit Tzaras. And now he got a Tzaras, and now he has to keep his days of Naziris. So in such a case, I say, Migaleach Tzaratoi, he takes care of his Tzaras, he finishes his Tzaras, and at the end of the Tzaras, he has to cut his hair. And V'Hada Yosef, Tlosen Yamin, the Nazir. And now he keeps his days of Naziris, which are 30 days. The Ha'isle Gidl Seir, because he has the 30 days available for him at the end to be able to keep his Naziris. So that's in a case where he has those 30 days at the end. But let's say if it comes out that he does not have his, so over here, what happened again? And so in this case, what does this person do? This person interrupts his Naziris, and then he resumes counting his Naziris. But what happens if this person has more than 30 days left at the end? Let's say he has 40, 50, 100 days left at the end. So even if he's not going to interrupt his count of his Naziris, even if he's going to include the days of the Tzaras in his Naziris, he's still going to have 30 days at the end. This person, because he only had 30 days left over, if during the days of his Tzaras, he's going to count some of the 30 days are going to go off from the Naziris for the days of his Tzaras, he's going to be left with less than 30 days at the end of the Naziris. So he's going to be forced to interrupt his Naziris. And that's what our Mishnah is speaking about, in order for him to have the 30 days at the end. But if he anyways has a lot of days left over, so then you could continue counting your Naziris even while you're a Mitzayra. So the point really that comes out from the Gemara is Tzaras in essence does not interrupt Naziris. The Tumah of Tzaras does not stop Naziris. The only thing is, because you cut your hair at the end of the Tzaras, if you don't have 30 days left over of your Tzaras, so then the Tzaras will have to interrupt your Naziris, so you have those 30 days at the end. But if you anyways have 30 days at the end, then it's not a problem. You can be a Mitzayra and be a Nazir at the same time.
Only a Chisda holds you have to cut your hair.
What, cut your hair when?
For Tzaras.
No, for Tzaras, that everybody agrees that you have to cut your hair at the Tzaras. Yeah, that's Allah, the cut your hair at the end of Tzaras. So therefore, Rav Chisda is making this distinction.
You can't bunch it together.
Right, no, yeah, exactly. You can't cut your hair side for Mitzayra and side for Naziris. You have to cut separately for concluding your Tzaras and separately for concluding your Naziris, which will also be a discussion in the Gemara later, we'll see. Okay.